We're gonna get started in a minute. I'm glad you all be here. Before we start, I'm gonna ask our Dean of the Senate, my esteemed colleagues, Senator Harp, to pray for us before we start.
Thank you for another day and opportunity to get it right. And whatever we do in deliberations, let us always have a godly view and remember that things are good if we think good. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Senator Sheikh Rahman. First of all, I'd like to thank all my esteemed colleagues that are here today, and also to all of our guests that are here to participate in these important discussions. And lastly, I would like to thank our incredible hardworking legislative staff that are always working hard for the people of Georgia. We are living in an unprecedented time that none of us has ever seen before. Since this pandemic, our lives have drastically changed, and we are all living in a different world that did not exist a few years ago. Parents of young children are very concerned about the transitioning their children back to in-person instruction safely. I know all of our school districts and parents is doing their best to tackle the situation very carefully. We know that COVID-19 is less likely to spread outdoors. Outdoor learning will allow students and educators to return to in-person instruction safely. The stress and social isolation resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic is taking a toll on our collective mental health. Studies shows that as little as 10 to 20 minutes in nature daily can serve as preventive measure for stress and mental health strain. Tennessee, Texas, and Maine are among states that are using outdoor learning with great success to get students safely back to in-person instruction. North Carolina and Alaska are using CARES Act funding to support outdoor learning. Now is the time for Georgia to figure out what will work for us. Outdoor learning improves educational outcome and improving children's academic performance, focus, behavior, of love of learning. Georgia's outdoor recreation economy annually generates 140,000 jobs, creating millions in wages and salaries, 1.8 billion in state and local tax revenue. And yet, we know that participation in outdoor recreation activities is declining for young people across our state and the country. Outdoor learning support young people's comfort in the outdoors while carries over into adulthood. Georgia's abundance of natural resources is one of the defining features of our state. With vibrant and robust national park, mountain ranges, hiking trail, beaches, and more. Georgia has a variety of outdoor spaces to share and enjoy. Georgia's environment is what helps us prosper, not just in terms of economy, but also the physical and mental health to our communities. Through this study committee, we'll be able to showcase all that our great state has to offer, and more specifically, find ways we can improve our children with the opportunity to learn and appreciate the great outdoors. I'm honored to be with you all and looking forward to this important discussion. Now I'd like to bring Sarah Milligan, President of the CEO of the Children and Nature Network, to present her presentation. If you can come to the podium, I'll appreciate it. If you take a moment, excuse me for a second, I'd like my colleagues over here, if you can take a minute, I forgot about that, I was going to go over there around the table to express your feelings or your thoughts. If you have, just take a moment, I'll appreciate it.
Morning, my name is State Senator Jen Jordan.
It's working.
And really, I just appreciate the efforts of Senator Rahman. I think what he said is right on point. Specifically, I mean, I think what we're dealing with in terms of COVID and the pandemic and the impact on children's mental health, I think this is probably needed more than ever before. So I just thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Ed Harbison. I live in Columbus, Georgia, serve the 15th Senatorial District, and I too am just really grateful for the focus that this important study committee will place on outdoor learning. It is a great project in Columbus, Georgia, headed up by Mr. Ronzel Buckner. But further than that, I think that we all need to make sure that we can do what we can to facilitate the need to have that outdoor learning aspect operational throughout the state. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm State Senator Sally Harrell. I represent Senate District 40, which is much of North DeKalb County, as well as a few areas in Gwinnett and North Fulton. I'm really excited about this topic, and I appreciate the senator for bringing it forward. I have participated in my church in developing a curriculum for a Back to Nature day camp for kids, and I raised my own kids to learn the sport of rock climbing, which has had a lifelong impact on them. In fact, my husband and my son, 21-year-old son, are out rock climbing today as a father-son kind of bonding thing to do. I wish I was with them, but I'm happy to be here. Thank you. Oh, and also I'm interested in this because for 2 decades now, I've fought for mandatory recess for kids. And although this should not be equated with recess, because recess is really unstructured time where the child gets to make the decision about what they're doing, still the concept of getting outside could take us a step forward in having schools make time for recess as part of their school day.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Harrell. Ready to start your presentation.
So much. Senators, thank you for your time and your interest in this topic and in joining this conversation. I will say that the Children and Nature Network, which is the organization I lead, the research actually points to the importance of unstructured time in brain development. So we can talk more about that later. But as the senator said, my name is Sarah Milligan Toffler. I am the president and CEO of the Children and Nature Network. I am based here in Georgia, and I'm here with my wonderful colleague, Charmaine Godley, who is our Health and Nature Fellow based here in Atlanta. But our work is actually all around the country. So I'm going to just provide a little bit of sort of national context. And there's so many leaders and experts here in the room today that are going to share more about, the specific benefits that we know about here in Georgia for outdoor learning. I'll just say briefly that the Children and Nature Network exists to ensure that all children have access to the many benefits of a regular connection to nature everywhere they live, learn, and play. And we do that we collect and curate research. There's information in your packets on the research specifically about outdoor learning and green schoolyards. We provide technical assistance to leaders all across the country on how to integrate nature-based solutions. And we're really working to grow this movement and to bring together likely and unlikely partners to work towards these kinds of solutions. The senator spoke about the pandemic, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, we're hearing that so many parents are very concerned about how do we get kids back into in-person instruction and doing so safely. And I'm here to talk about just what we know about why that's a good idea now and after COVID, because the benefits of outdoor learning really set a child up for lifelong success. And at the Children Nature Network, we like to say that nature makes children happier, healthier, and smarter. It's kind of an easy thing to remember. And when we talk about children being healthier, we know, and you don't need me to tell you this, I'm sure you see it with the children in your lives, but on average, children are spending up to 44 hours a day indoors, much of that time in front of a screen, and as little as 10 minutes a day on average, learning, playing, and exploring outdoors. So that's, 44 hours, that's a full-time job last time I checked, right? And that's where our children are spending their time. We know, and we're going to hear from some experts here today, that a lack of physical activity in children has led to a lot of serious health outcomes, putting a lot of children on a fast track for life of chronic disease and issues. But what we know about kids who spend time in nature, they're more active and physically fit. We know that playing outdoors promotes core strength, balance, agility, and the development of gross motor skills, all things we want to see in children. And this is an interesting fact that is directly correlated with the move indoors, which has actually happened over the last 40 years. That's been documented. The rise in myopia and nearsightedness among children globally has increased 25%. So this is becoming like eyesight is being affected by the lack of time outside in the sunlight. And then there's many, I could go on, but those are just some kind of high points about, how spending time in nature really helps kids' physical health. Their mental health. Senator, you spoke about the collective mental health crisis, and we've seen many adults turn to parks and green space during the pandemic. What we know from studies is that the time that children have been spending outdoors during the pandemic has actually gone down from before the pandemic. Yes. And a lot of that has to do with online instruction, parents having, working from home, maybe the parents are getting out to exercise or do things, but the kids are not getting outdoors. And, kids aren't, we're getting a little bit back to this, but if they're unvaccinated, they're not going to necessarily play with the neighborhood kids and things like that. There's concerns about that. So kids have been spending a lot of time indoors. As the senator said, as little as 10 to 20 minutes a day in nature can serve as a preventative measure for stress and mental health strain. We know, and we've seen this in studies of cortisol levels in children, that just a little bit of time in nature, and this can be nearby, it can be a garden, it can be, a nearby park, those kinds of things, as well as, big nature areas that we all love as well. But it reduces stress, anxiety, and enhances positive mood. So, why wouldn't we want this for our children every day? Unstructured outdoor play and recreation provides opportunities for children to take risks, develop problem-solving skills, self-esteem, and a sense of agency, which is so important. And what we know is that the more, a little bit is good and more is better. So if we can build it into the school day and out of the school time and have those places available in communities, it'll make such a difference for children. And finally, outdoor learning, we know, improves academic outcomes, and especially for those children with the greatest barriers to academic success, the research shows us that they benefit proportionally more. from outdoor learning and hands-on learning opportunities. We see improvements in test scores, graduation rates, specifically increased performance in math, science, social studies, and reading. Okay, that's a good thing. And as I said, higher graduation rates. The other piece is that it seems to, and students and teachers report fewer behavior problems and a greater enthusiasm and excitement for learning. So for all of these reasons and more, and you're going to hear a lot more about this from our experts here today, we really we really want you to understand the full range of benefits of outdoor learning, and then we look forward over the course of the next few months to really, being able to have some hands-on opportunities to see what this looks like, to understand where there are gaps, and there are gaps. Not every child in Georgia has access to this, and then some. What can we do collectively to ensure that, as you said, Senator, that that we do better, and that we really support the health and well-being of Georgia's children. So with that, I'm happy to take questions or step aside and let's get on with the other great folks you have to hear from today.
Any of you have any questions?
You dealt with it. I think I just read it, but what impact do you think that the growth of gaming, on computers and that kind of thing, and the competition and that kind of thing has had overall? Is that part of this 44, you mentioned, am I right? 44 hours in front of a screen, is that part of it? Is that in addition to the kids are just not being outdoors, but in front of that screen?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I want to be clear that the 44 hours a week indoors isn't all in front of a screen, but much of it is. So, and certainly the rise in gaming, we all have our phones, and then school has gone online, right? So there's legitimate reasons for children to be using technology. And I want to be clear that the Children in Nature Network is not anti-tech. I mean, there's, a lot of benefits there, but, we like to say that the more high tech we become, the more nature we need, because what we know is that, and we all experience, Zoom fatigue and things like that. Like you need to be able to restore, and nature provides such a great opportunity for kids to be able to, balance all of these things that they're being asked to balance. I think that there is, and gaming isn't necessarily a bad thing. We have come up with some ideas that sort of, create games that, that sort of replicate gaming outside.
Sure.
But I think so much of what we're seeing is a lack of comfort in the outdoors, and a lack of, in many communities, in many neighborhoods, access to safe, nearby, culturally relevant spaces where they feel welcome. And so we have a lot of work to do to make sure that those spaces are available, and that children and families feel comfortable and welcomed in those spaces.
I think your comments about safety, that aspect of it, I think that's well taken. So,
absolutely.
Back in the day, you go outside and play all day, but
that's right.
And it was relatively safe. So,
correct.
And I guess well taken. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator.
Sometimes I think how interesting you make outside, how you balance between the tech and the nature. So that's, it's fortunately myself, I have 11 years old. Well, he turned 11 yesterday. And I guess many of you are in the same situation as I am. It's very hard sometimes to get them out of their iPad, or, even though they're not
social media.
Sometimes it's how interesting you can make outside. You can always take them, whether they want to go to Chick-fil-A or McDonald's, they're ready to go out, but you want to go to the park, sometimes they're hesitant.
That's right.
So I'm sure some of you all, they were listening or here, all of us has that problem. So how we can make interesting, how we can make safety, these are all important. Thank you for your comment, and we'll go to the next speaker. We have so many, we have so many experts over here. We're going to listen to you all, and over the next couple of months, I do have a plan, different site we're going to visit and see what we can explore, what we have out there, So we intend to go and visit some of you all, some of your facilities, some of the program that you will have. That's the only way we can learn. I'm no expert. If I was expert, I wouldn't be here. So I'm going to ask all of your cooperation and help. And we have some materials to read. And I urge you all, if you have any information that you can provide us to the committee, and even if you don't testify, if you are hearing anything we can do that makes our children's lives a little better, and we would be willing to listen. We have a next speaker. Excuse my pronunciation. Sometimes in English is not necessarily my first language. It's not my first language. So if you do not understand some of you also, you can always ask me. If I misspell your name or mispronounce your name, I apologize. So next person we have is here. Is that Zipagani Wakiwa? Is board president of Environmental Education Alliance, speaking on behalf of Council of Outdoor Learning. Thank you, appreciate it.
Sorry. Thank you, Senator. In fact, you did well. The name is Zipangani Vokiwa.
Bokiwa.
So I'll give you a B plus.
That will work. That will work. As long as I get C, I'm okay.
Thank you, both senators. I'm very grateful to stand in front of you on behalf of the Environmental Education Alliance of Georgia. I am currently a professor of science at Mercer University, and my colleagues of the alliance trusted that I could be the president of the board, so I am. Growing up in a little village in Malawi, where I left 7 years ago, what is it that I knew? We were playing outside, going to school, come and play, go to the field. That's what I grew up doing. Went to high school. You were in class. The next day, weekend, let's go outside, clean the surrounding. That's what I used to do growing up. But as I teach environmental science and biology at Mercer the past 14 years, even for the adult students, let's get out. So most of my classes, we are out in the nature trail. Because environmental science, what is environmental science? If you don't know a nature trail, if you don't appreciate what nature looks like, this is at the level of the adult students. But the young students, the young kid growing up, we need to inculcate in them what the outdoors mean to them. As my colleague has already said, the mental setup of our young kids who are growing up, and they'll be our future leaders. They need to be supported by a program like the one you have called us here to advocate. So I'm here on behalf of one of our projects as EEA, which is the Council of Outdoor Learning, in short known as COOL. I also joke in class to say, did you hear what I said? Is it cool like that? But COOL, C-O-O-L, Council of Outdoor Learning, which provides technical assistance, technical resources, and professional development of educators at schools, nature centers, and other agencies that provide outdoor learning. We organize an annual outdoor learning symposium. This year is scheduled for November 2nd. And we conduct research on how to make outdoor learning effective and sustainable. I'm sure there's a big reason for the effort for us to meet now and support your study to say the outdoors are there for us both to learn, to improve our health, and prepare for the future when you and I will be at the nursing home. The young ones must be prepared now. So the term outdoor learning can be confusing and many people are not sure what it actually means. It can conjure up the image of an outdoor classroom with benches in rows and podium at the front, although its purpose is to transport lectures from the classroom to the field. There's that confusion, but we all know what we mean by outdoor learning. As I was walking up here with my colleague, what did I learn? Just today, as an adult, I said, oh, the whole of 2020, I haven't driven to the downtown. Because at one time, when there was Governor Perdue, I was an intern at the EPD over here. So I said, oh, Karen, I don't know this building. Oh, what did you say that building is? The one with concrete to the east here? I said, right. And there's another one on Law Center something. Didn't I learn something today out by leaving my home to drive to Atlanta? So we learn every day. Has that made a difference in my thinking process? Yes. Downtown Atlanta is changing. That's what I learned just today. Another example that I would like to give, we have a 5-year-old grandson who we worried about during the COVID time. Because even though we were mostly staying with him, he said, grand in my language in Malawi is agogo. So he said, agogo, when do I go back to school to visit my friends? I'm missing them. And that young man was just troubling. But when school opened, he's very, very different. By meeting his friends, playing outside, and the parents have spoiled him by making him know how to use the cell phone. So he takes pictures and say, agogo, or grandparents. Today I was playing with my colleague X outside at school. A big difference. So everything else being equal, outdoor learning is not just about changing the setting for educational activities. It's about changing the way students learn to a more active and engaging process. Anything a child can read about in a textbook can be more fully understood by doing an authentic activity or a real-world investigation. And the research shows that getting kids outside to learn results in a higher test scores and a deeper level of understanding. My colleague Sarah has already alluded to that. My excuse if my pronunciation is a bit different. I went to a British school for 32 years before I came here, just in case. And the best part is that kids who struggle academically and those who have behavior problems in the classroom show the most improvement outdoors in terms of higher grades and ability to stay on task. Kids from groups traditionally underrepresented in STEM careers, including girls and children of color, flourish and persist in STEM-related schoolyard projects and eco-engineering challenges. So outdoor learning is inclusive and puts academic success in reach for a wider variety of students. I'm saying this on my own behalf as a professor of science and as a representative of our own cool program in EEA. And it's not just science. Outdoor learning provides context and relevance for kids in many subject areas. Imagine how much it is easier to learn geometry while triangulating the height of trees. Oh, geometry. What's the height of this tree? That student will never forget the meaning of geometry. If that geometry word was mentioned when they were looking at a tree and its shape and size, compared to just sitting down and go, oh, now it's geometry. We have to say, to learn side, angle, side. Oh, angle, side, angle, what's that? As opposed to when you practically get outside and probably demonstrate one of the examples such as that one. So on how social studies comes alive when kids investigate how people lived on the same land many years ago, or how descriptive writing flows and is more easily when students are observing nature. Equally as important, when students are involved in solving bite-sized problems in the schoolyard, like how to reduce erosion on a hillside, attract missing pollinators, or improve the quality of water in a nearby creek. My colleague Darrell will talk about that because I've been to his site in Wawa with my students, even though they were adults, but it was outside learning. I got permission from my chair. I said, I'm not going to teach environmental science in class because I've discovered Wawa and I'll be taking my students there. Darrell is my witness, and I do that. But that's for the adult students. So the young one, if we start early, we'll be building a society that will be more helpful, I will repeat, when you and I are in the nursing home. So everything else being equal, we are trying to build a confidence in our young ones. So are they learning in this 21st century skills of collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity? We should also add another C to the skills, which is confidence. When we are outside there and the young ones say, oh, this is what we did. Mom and dad, let me tell you what we did today outside when we went to school. That builds confidence in our young person. And when a young person builds confidence at an early age, what will happen when they reach 15, 20, 25? So this villager called me, when I reached 30, I told my government, can I go to America? I want to go and do my school there. Where did the confidence came from? I was raised by a single mother who said, hey, don't do that. Go outside and be playing. Don't sit in the house. Confidence. I'm not bragging, but my government didn't say go to America. I asked, I need to go and study animal science in America. Can I go? Confidence. And the other confidence is the little boy I just shared, the grandkid of ours. He's now confident. Every time he goes to school, there must be something sent to the grandparents to say, this is what I did in school. So from the COVID 2020 to now, he's a very different young man. All right, so outdoor learning works for all grade levels. It doesn't require fancy or expensive facilities, whether it takes place in a schoolyard or outside on a nature center, with minimal investment for outdoor work surfaces, which are more important than sitting, shade, some project supplies, and more importantly, professional development and support for educators. Every Georgia child can benefit from outdoor learning. So let's make that our goal. And that's what I am here to testify for our Council for Outdoor Learning of the Environmental Education Alliance of Georgia. Not as a master professor, not, oh, you do with adults, but I'm combining the two. That's what brought me to the confidence that my colleagues elected me to be the president for the board of EEA. I thank you, so senators, for giving me this opportunity to testify that this study is very important for sustainability, meaning that we should not only be thinking about now, we should think about the future. And that future is invested in our young children and the youth. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Professor. If you have a
I shall go by what Sarah said. Any question for me? It's because of Sarah. Any question for me? Yes, ma'am.
So I have this question on the basis of you being a professor and even at Mercer. So even though you are representing different organizations, it seems that we would benefit from having college graduates who can go out and help design and implement these outdoor programs and be specialists in this area of education. Does Mercer have any degree programs for outdoor education, and or are you aware of how many higher education programs we might have to train young people to help implement these programs?
The short answer to your observation is that we don't have a degree, termed or designated outdoor learning degree in XYZ. But in our environmental science degree, which I am part of as a professor, is the environment is outside there, not in this class.
Okay.
That's me as an environmental science professor.
Mhm.
But our school of education, which is Tift College of Education, where my colleague seated over here, graduated, I just learned that today, we say the environment is out there. So in your teaching, please include it.
Mhm.
Let me give you another example now that you've asked. I happen to be a Fulbright awardee in 2012 to 14. The project that I got funded for was environment and the culture in Malawi. So Fulbright funded me, and I took teachers from the Atlanta metro area, from Gwinnett, Clayton, Douglas, and Fulton. So 12 teachers. We spent 1 month in Malawi under that project. Why did, if I ask you back, why do you think taking teachers from America to a small poor country of Malawi meant for that 1 month? Can you answer that? Can you answer me that
It got
question?
them to think outside the box.
Outside the box. And the requirement by Fulbright was whatever the teachers learn in Malawi, they must incorporate that in their syllabus for their K to 12. Did we impact somebody with that project? Did that project impact somebody through those teachers? And even this young person who is learning and will be our future leader. So, there are many ways of trying to do the same thing, not only through a paper called a degree, but the processes that contribute to that paper called a degree should be should be our one big intention when we are doing what we are specialized to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question? Thank you, senators.
Thank you,
And
Professor.
colleagues.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's what we intend to do. We're going to explore Georgia. We're going to go out and see what's going on. We're not going to have just hearing over here.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next, if you have Susanna, I'm sorry, I'm Vice President of Growth and Partnership Outteach.
Outteach, yes. Susanna Coyle-Pillai,
Susanna
thank
Coyle,
you.
thank
And you definitely get a pass on that one. Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, honorable senators. It's so nice to be here today. We do have a presentation. Is there any, beautiful. Perfect. So awesome. Just see how I flip this back and forth. Is there a certain button I push to make it go up and down? There we go. Okay. So sorry. Good morning. My name is Susanna Coyle-Pillai. I am the Vice President of Partnerships and Growth at Outteach. I'm also a parent. I was born in Midtown. I'm a parent in Cobb County Schools of 2 boys in 3rd and 5th grade. My husband is also an educator and has been an employee of Cobb County Schools for, over 20 years. Outteach is an education nonprofit. We're a national nonprofit, though I do live here in Atlanta. And we are really focused on transforming STEM and science education in this country. We know that if elementary students are not exposed to engaging STEM and science opportunities from an early age, that can effectively block them from STEM careers. Research shows us that that transformational STEM and science opportunities are what puts kids on the path to dynamic STEM careers. So there is a gap in this country in the workforce pipeline in STEM careers. STEM careers are some of the fastest growing and highest paying jobs out there. But we also know that women and people of color are underrepresented in these fields, yet the fields are demanding greater diversity. We look here at the map of Georgia, and this is showing you the cluster of schools that are STEM certified. As you can see, there are not a lot in our rural communities. Rural communities lack access to STEM opportunities, but we know that kids have to have that foundational knowledge in elementary school, or they can be blocked. And so the time is now for us to make a change. So why am I talking to you about STEM and science careers in an outdoor learning committee? Well, it's because outdoor learning is that path. So when we look at fourth grade test scores in school, in Title I schools, in our kids that have the highest need, 78% of fourth graders are not proficient in science. That means 22% of our fourth graders are proficient. That is a staggering number. We also know that 1/3 of elementary teachers feel prepared to teach science, which means 2/3 of our teachers in elementary don't. As I'm sure some of you know, most elementary teachers are what we call generalists, meaning they have to teach all of the subjects. Because of testing, they become very focused on math and ELA, as they should be. That is critically important. But imagine if we could increase the quality and quantity of science instruction so that kids have hands-on opportunities, not just in science, but also in math, ELA, and social studies. Suddenly you're lifting the boat across all contents and improving student outcomes. Students right now in elementary receive on average 18 minutes of science instruction per day. That's a big problem, right? My kids, they don't even get science every day. They alternate between social studies and science. So my kids go weeks without any kind of science instruction. Yet we know that by 6th grade, many students have started to determine their career trajectory. So middle school and high school is too late to provide these kinds of opportunities. So outdoor learning is one of our answers to filling this STEM gap and getting kids engaged in STEM and science early on. Research shows us, as we've been talking about, that outdoor learning and hands-on experiences improve student outcomes. It accelerates learning. Right now, we're all talking about COVID learning loss. Districts are not focused on remediation. They're focused on accelerating learning, and outdoor learning is a key piece of doing that. We know that when you can get kids outdoors and provide them with authentic, real world experiences that are relevant to them, that's how you deepen the learning across subject matters. And then, as is so important right now, outdoor learning also promotes wellness, social emotional learning, these mental health things that are another thing that districts are so focused on right now. And of course, when we look at the data, safety, right? COVID is not going away, unfortunately. And so why not have our kids outdoors in a safer environment when we know about all the other benefits? So how can we do this, right? I mean, we talk to teachers all the time. We work with teachers. That's what we do. Teachers want to teach outdoors. They know that their kids are more engaged. They know that they're inspired. They know that kids that have the most trouble inside of a classroom can shine in an outdoor environment. So what do schools need? How can we all get this done together? The first thing they need is funding, right? We're at a pivotal moment in this country with all of the different federal funding coming down, particularly through ESSER. There have been 3 rounds of ESSER funding. And as many of you probably know, this funding has to be used in 3 years. And so districts are thinking about how can we make these investments in a way that's sustainable. And unfortunately, it doesn't mean we can pay teachers a lot more or we can hire more teachers, because what are you going to do with those salaries in 3 years? Schools and districts need the funding and the resources to implement outdoor learning. And what are they going to use that funding on? Teacher training is the key. Like I said, teachers want to take kids outside for learning. but they have to have the strategies and the skills and the resources to know how to teach their standards outside. Teachers don't have time to do extra things, right? Districts and superintendents are not going to get on board and get excited about programs that aren't going to impact academics. So if we want to all do this on a big scale together, it has to be aligned to academics. Teachers have to know how to get their kids outdoors to teach those standards. So teacher training is key. And then the outdoor environments themselves, if we can work with districts throughout this state to add additional outdoor classrooms, outdoor learning features, imagine what we can all do together. And this is happening. It is happening across the country. I mentioned we're a national organization. We've partnered just recently with the Office of the State Superintendent in Washington, D.C. We're designing 80 outdoor classrooms across campuses in the District of Columbia this year. We're working with the North Carolina State Legislature to figure out how can we partner to get expanded outdoor learning access to schools in the rural communities. So we can do this together. As you can see, I mentioned we're a national organization. And so here's some of the impact. Outteach is going to be working this year in 25 districts across the state of Georgia. And so there's such opportunity to impact teachers and students right now, re-inspire our kids following the impacts of the last year and a half. And so, I'm not going to read that slide to you. Instead, I'm going to tell you just a very brief story about how outdoor learning can really happen in a school and in a classroom. If you take a 5th grade science standard, one my son just learned, one of the 5th grade science standards is around constructive and destructive forces, and they learn about erosion. In a traditional elementary classroom in 5th grade, the teacher will most likely stand at the front of the classroom, talk about constructive and destructive forces. They might show a video of the Grand Canyon, or they might show a video of a beach and the waves crashing over the sand, right? And they might tell the students, this is what destructive forces are. Well, imagine if 90, 95, maybe 100% of the students in that classroom have never been to the Grand Canyon, or they don't go to the beach for spring break, because most of the schools that we serve are high need schools, Title I schools. And so how is an elementary student going to form that connection to what's being told to them if they have it's not relevant to them at all? Imagine then if you're in a school and that teacher has been trained in outdoor learning, and maybe they have some resources in their outdoor classroom. And imagine instead of showing those videos, they take their kids outside and they talk to them about posing a problem. And the kids work together, and they might have an earth science station that has some sand and other outdoor materials. Imagine if those kids collaborate and work together and they build a mountain, a small mountain. And then the teacher gives them a little bit of water, and they can pour that water on that mountain, and they can watch the little stream come down and watch the sand wash away. And maybe they pour it just a little bit and it goes slower. And then they pour it really, they dump it all on there and it all falls down. Imagine the difference that makes in understanding such an abstract concept of destructive forces and how the Grand Canyon got formed over millions of years. Here's the really cool thing. The other thing you've done when you're able to do that is you've just leveled the playing field for the students in that class, right? The teacher doesn't have to rely on experiences that student may or may not have outside of school. So you've closed the experience gap. That's how we get our youngest kids on those pathways to fulfill STEM careers, and our kids that don't have those experiences outside of school to see themselves as a scientist, an inventor, an astronaut. That's how we diversify our STEM pipeline. That's really how we keep Georgia, growing in our STEM jobs and keeping our kids here and flourishing, right? That's why outdoor learning is important. And that's the opportunity we all have together. Like I said, superintendents aren't going to get on board with this if we don't show academic outcomes. And so Outteach, for example, measures things like teacher effectiveness and student engagement, because we know that teachers are the single most important in-school factor that impacts student outcomes, and engaged students achieve more. So we have to show those connections in order to make this happen on a large scale. So, there's some amazing talent in this room. I loved hearing your comments. I think, it's just so important to give our students these resources. And this was important before COVID, right? I mean, this is how students should learn. But we all, we can use this moment in time to re-engage our kids in learning, to inspire our kids, and do it in a sustainable way. If we're training our teachers now, providing these resources now for the next 3 years, you've just built that teacher's capacity for the rest of their career. You don't have to keep paying for it over and over. So there's a real, there's a real logic to doing this now, that we can really impact our kids for really decades. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions?
Miss Susanna,
Yeah. Suzanne is just fine.
forgive me for using the first name.
It's totally fine.
Are you, how do you partner with all of the systems in Muskogee, such as Muskogee County, Fulton County? Are you already in Muskogee County as well?
I do not think we are there actually right now, but we partner with districts at both the district level and the school level, and then also with states and state legislators, as I mentioned, in North Carolina, and state departments of education. So we work
in what way, excuse me, in what way with the legislatures?
In North Carolina, we're actually looking at a line item in their budget to bring, out-teach programs. So for example, both our teacher training and then the actual outdoor spaces themselves to different schools in rural communities.
Okay. Can you give me just a very short version of, you would go in Muskogee County, and how would you set that up with Superintendent David Lewis as an example?
Sure. So, what we do is work on training teachers throughout the school year. So when you look at teacher training and professional development, job embedded coaching is what is most impactful in shifting teacher practice. And so when we're working at the district level, for example, we might be training all of their 3rd, 4th, and 5th teachers in outdoor learning and really in shifting their practice. And I could talk all day about this, but really shifting to an inquiry-based model that is student-led, because that's what develops their 21st century skills. So we're coaching their teachers throughout the school year, doing things like model lessons where the teacher can watch our coaches teach their students in the outdoor environment, teach specific standards. We do observations where we're giving feedback to teachers saying, hey, I really liked how you did this thing. Your students were engaged, or maybe they weren't engaged, and here's how you could have shifted what you were doing. We do planning sessions with them as well so that they can lesson plan. And then we're also putting in actual outdoor spaces onto their campuses. So like we have land experts in outdoor education spaces particularly. So we work really collaboratively with districts and principals to build those spaces in a way that's really relevant to the immediate community.
Yeah, and that was interesting. I used to serve on the school board in Columbus.
Okay, yep.
And you had this concept that all children can learn, right?
Absolutely.
But in the midst of that, you had this seemingly drive to make it more and more narrow for kids to get out and play and cram more academic stuff in. How do you sort of balance that and turn that ship around towards where they're thinking about, integrating it more with the outdoor aspect of it?
Yeah, so that's why I talk about academics so much, is it has to be aligned to standards in order for leadership at a district to say, like, yes, let's do this on a large scale, right? Because right now the way that many schools work is their subjects are very siloed. So you might have 90 minutes for math, and then you've got 60 minutes for ELA, and then 20 minutes for science on some days. And so if you can show a teacher, because they're elementary teachers, right? They have their kids all day. So they're not going from class to class or different subjects like in middle school. So if you can show a teacher, okay, here's a science standard that you're working on, but here's how you bring your literacy standard that you're also working on into this outdoor lesson. That's how you show them how to do these things really sort of methodically and strategically. But again, so it's not something extra, because that's the challenge you see when you talk to districts is they'll say, oh, my teachers don't, they're so busy, they don't want to have to handle another thing, or they don't have time to learn another thing. That's why we work really in a job embedded way. So there isn't, they don't have to hire subs, they don't have to change their schedule. It's really embedded into the regular school day, because that's how you get it done. And that's how you really make sure that it's impacting academics.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next. Next, I have Mr. Darrell Smith, Chairman and CEO Program Director for Outreach Activity Center, West Atlanta Watershed Alliance. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me. So my name is Darrell Haddock. I'm the Environmental Education Director for an organization known as WAWA, the West Atlanta Watershed Alliance. And I'm going to ask you to indulge me in a really, really quick outdoor lesson. So because we have watershed in our name, oftentimes people don't understand what watersheds are. And in the city of Atlanta, we have a watershed management department, which further confuses people because that's the water utility. So people oftentimes associate water with watersheds. So I'm going to ask you all to make a bowl with your hand, right? And imagine you've got a cloud above your hand and it's raining in your hand. The watershed is actually the land that the raindrops fall on that would begin to fill up the nooks and crannies in your hand. And that will become the streams and rivers that eventually would flow toward the center of the watershed and become a lake, a stream, a bog, a swamp. And so by giving youth and actually adults these concepts visually, now I start to clarify what is it that I need to know when I'm outside. And so oftentimes Wawa has been blessed that we have about 400 acres of green space in the city of Atlanta. All of that land is City of Atlanta Parks inventory. So we have an MOU like Piedmont Park or Chastain Park as a nonprofit to serve as a conservancy. But we actually facilitate park maintenance, environmental education, and green space stewardship. And we've done a lot in terms of volunteer coordination and service learning that I'll talk about in maybe 3 different talking points. So I guess the first thing I want to hit you with is early and often. So Sarah mentioned, why we had the need to get these young people out. And you raised a quite valid point that, with COVID in our current situation, we need kids to be outdoors. And we're having a very polarized conversation about masks in school, masks out of school. If we could add to the conversation that we had a coordinated effort to teach outside, it would help to give more options to school systems and teachers that don't have to feel like it's as divisive as a conversation that we're having. Are we in school? Are we out of school? It really, we're not painting with enough colors, if that makes sense. We really need to get to the point where we have more options and we have parks and green space in our communities, and we have ecosystems all over this amazing state that we can add to this opportunity to provide outdoor learning in that doesn't make this a binary conversation, and it's working with partners. So adding something that Susanna was mentioning, yes, we need to have the school systems, and yes, teachers can teach a lot, but you've got facilitators, you've got environmental educators, formal and informal, already in communities, already having access to parks and green spaces that could support teachers. So teachers don't have to know every single thing about nature. They could work with the organizations like mine, and we could come in. And one way that we're doing that is through the Thrive Outside Children in Nature Network programming, where Wawa goes to parks and rec centers. We go to the Y. We work with George Dewsbury, my friend here, has provided support. So we go to Boys and Girls Clubs. So when we can't get kids to our 400 acres, we can send staff to other places. And we could still do many of the programs that we would do. You know, oftentimes you have to do an assessment of what nature is there at that facility. But even in a parking lot where you might have just a few trees, there's nature, right? There's this idea that nature is in our backyard. I want to go to a point that Zipper mentioned, which is citizen science or community science. Why is that relevant to STEM? Well, students need to do project-based into STEM. Students can do problem-solving projects on the problems that they face in their own communities. So communities we're seeing like Katrina and the superstorm Ida have created lots of flooding. Where is this flooding coming from? In Atlanta, it's not water inundation from the coast. In Atlanta, it's hard surfaces. We flood here because we have impervious surfaces from development. So students could look at the watershed analogy and then look at perhaps adding to that, you know, what would it be like if I had, you know, more parks, more green space, more places that the water could actually soak into the ground? How could I alleviate the flooding that might occur in my neighborhood or on my street or my community? Then that's another way that students could, you know, work on these STEM-based concepts and improve their awareness of their own communities, but also improve their science and mathematics. And the last thing I want to bring up is K to Gray. So Wawa, and because of the work that I'm doing with the board, I serve on the Equity and Community Engagement Committee. And we really see these issues as being interdisciplinary, right? Intergenerational. And to the point about comfort, the thing that made you connect to nature was somebody that you knew took you fishing, right? Somebody that you knew, you know, showed you how to plant and work in a garden. And so again, with the programs that we would have in school or the programs that we do, we consider our programming K to Gray because we invite those grandmothers, we invite those aunts, we invite those aunties to participate in community science efforts so that the whole community is collecting data. You know, everyone, the student, the teacher, and members of the family are working on these issues. And it really helps to make that student more inspired because they can talk about that in the home. It's not just some separate activity that you're doing that doesn't have any real connection to your world and your environment. And so I wanted to just kind of share those three things with you, you know, early and often, K to Gray, and community or citizen science as ways that Wawa has been able to be very, very successful. And I guess I'll close on this. Many of you have probably looked at issues in the city of Atlanta with the rising crime, you know, things like the water boy issues, and providing environmental experiential workforce development is another opportunity for young people to take these experiences and to thrive in a way that it gives them more options. We do a program called Restoration, Not Incarceration, where young people who may have been formerly incarcerated, we introduce them to urban forestry. And they get out and they're doing invasive plant removal. And we're working with organizations that are largely working, you know, in urban agriculture, but because they're familiar with plants, then they could do green infrastructure maintenance. They could do urban and community forestry. And Georgia has a huge forestry industry. So if we can find a way to make those connections, get those young people into real jobs that really are well-paying jobs, you know, not just the solar panels and, you know, all of the stuff that we kind of get bogged down talking about, but the outdoor green job industries that we know are very relevant and germane for the state. I really believe that that will also be a benefit and an impact that we'll see based on this outdoor learning and environmental education. So I'll stop there.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Don't
No
have a
problem.
question for you.
I love it.
Thank you. Next, we get Ms. Lauren Hamilton, Vice President of Program, Greening Youth Foundation.
Greetings, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Good. Awesome. I want to thank everyone for being with us today and thank you for the opportunity to address so many of you. Also want to acknowledge all my colleagues in the room and peers in this environmental education space. It's good to see friends and folks that I haven't seen in a bit just because of the COVID pandemic. So it's good to catch up. The Greening Youth Foundation is a nonprofit organization that was founded about 15 years ago by our CEO and founder, who had a strong passion for seeing her own children in the education system here in Georgia have a stronger foundation in environmental ed. So she took it upon herself to start environmental education opportunities at her children's school. She had outdoor recreation programs for the classroom. She was definitely that parent, room parent who just would not go away. And obviously, without the support of educators, informal and non-formal, many of our formal educators could not see better opportunities for environmental education. So out of that experience and wanting to see the growth of that, the Greening Youth Foundation was founded to really impact the lives of underrepresented and underserved, at promise, sometimes not at risk, we call them at promise, youth and individuals who need the opportunity and exposure to the outdoors in different ways. Just to foster conservation principles and stewardship and have them have the experiences that Darrell kind of put out that they don't have access to in their personal lives. So we work in a space that allows us to do not only environmental education for youth and young adults, but also workforce development opportunities, because we see the environmental education field as the opportunity to work on workforce development and diversity. That's the issue that we're facing. I can truly appreciate Susanna and her words about the need for more STEM career development. I had a few statistics that I was going to read too about those disparities in STEM by sex, race, and origin. It says that African Americans comprise about 10.8% of the workforce, but they account for only 4.8% of the natural science managers, 3.1% of the conservation scientists and foresters, and 2.7% of the environmental scientists and geoscientists. And for our Hispanic populations, that's even worse. And that disparity does not reflect the diversity and beauty of our population in this nation. And without the representation of those individuals in those STEM careers and in those spaces, we will continue to see the lack of diversities in those careers. And this not only affects the environmental education sectors, this affects our ability to preserve our public spaces and green spaces and lands who need representation in those fields. So that not only do people who recreate and visit our state parks, our national parks, our public spaces feel safe and feel comfortable, feel the ability to recreate there in their own comfortability, but it also represents an opportunity for them to learn. We have the opportunity to put young people in place through internships through the Greening Youth Foundation. I think in the 15 years that we've been in business, the numbers are around 8,900 individuals who have been put into the workforce of our national park system, of our Forest Service, of our Fish and Wildlife Service, of our many federal agencies who are tasked with supporting and preserving our public spaces. And these young people come from diverse backgrounds, not just STEM. And part of our job is to emphasize that everyone has the opportunity to become an environmental steward. Everyone's position and background and even discipline and learning allows them to be an environmental steward. And so we take that opportunity and that responsibility very seriously as an organization. We not only work to diversify from all Indigenous groups, but also the opportunity to teach about the history of those spaces. Part of our environmental education programming is not only emphasizing the need for conservation practices, but preservation of the history of those spaces, whether they're civil rights or American history or Indigenous history. Those pieces are so vital to the environmental education conversation, because if we don't have the understanding of where we started and where we came from, there's no way that we have an appreciation going forward to preserve them in a sustainable manner for the future. I also wanted to point out a couple other things. In STEM education and preservation, our students have the opportunity to see careers that they had no access to before, understanding that if you don't know who a biological science is in the 6th grade or in the 7th grade, there's no way that you're going to pursue that career. Your access to someone who has that job or to someone who can talk to you about that job, if it's not there, then you're not going to pursue that job. So why would we not emphasize the opportunity to put these people in places where they can have access to those careers, knowledge about those careers, knowledge about what it takes to join that workforce at an early age? This is when they're sponges. They're willing to learn. Right now, I cringe every little bit, not because a career in basketball isn't great, but because a career in basketball is not as likely as a career as an environmental scientist. You could study and get that career much more likely. And there's nothing wrong with pursuing your personal passions and areas that would take you to sports related activities, but definitely the need for us to have better stewardship instilled in our young people is one that is more prevalent today than it ever was. The opportunity to teach them about climate change in a culturally relevant way is the reason why they hear stories about flooding and superstorms and stay dispassionate. They stay apathetic to those stories. That it doesn't really hit home unless it's right there in their faces. And so we have the opportunity to go into classrooms and into spaces, as Darrell kind of indicated, that allows them to see this firsthand, allows them to interpret and understand what's going on in the environment around them, and be active participants in solution finding opportunities and thinking outside of the box. I was going to mention one other opportunity the Greening Youth Foundation found. I call it an opportunity because the pandemic took us to a place that we had no idea we were going to be in. I think we all were kind of rocked off our normal status because of it. We had been in this environmental education space for so long and were able to go into classrooms and help supplement that environmental education with students and teachers in so many ways in the past. And when the pandemic hit, that opportunity went away, but that didn't mean that the need went away. So we had to restructure our curriculum that we were offering. It was a public school initiative that we called Green Box, that we restructured to allow us to do virtual learning. We supplemented the virtual learning that everyone was doing through Zoom and the various platforms with green boxes that excited and engaged people in their own homes to go outside in their backyards, in their parks, in their playgrounds to explore nature outside. It was everything from let's talk about bird watching, emphasizing observation, emphasizing scavenger hunts, and then coming back to discuss those opportunities with those students. And it was widely popular. I myself have a 3rd and a 5th grader. And so I know that without the opportunity to experience environmental education, whether it was virtual or whether it was something that we were experiencing with teachers in person, we would not have made it through the pandemic. You'd have had 2 crazy parents, 2 frustrated kids, 1 very unhappy cat in a household that didn't have the opportunity to let the outdoors be a mental and physical balm to a situation that was very hard to experience. Again, I want to emphasize that environmental education is not only an opportunity for us to foster more stewardship in our youth, but it's an opportunity for us to grow and develop a workforce who is going to put forth the effort to continue the preservation of our environment and our green spaces and public lands. So I'm with that and see if there are any questions. I'm happy to take those.
Thank you. We're going to try to skip the questions for right now
Okay.
because the time constraint makes yours. We have Jackie Harp from REI. Here by any chance? No. Oh, she'll be on Zoom. Okay. We have.
Hi, I'm joining virtually. I don't know if you all can hear me or not.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all today. I wish that I was able to join you in person. My name is Jackie Harp. I'm a recruiter focused on inclusive recruitment and employee retention in Georgia for the Outdoor Equipment Cooperative, REI. In the state of Georgia, REI has 5 retail locations. We have a local brand engagement team, a local guided experiences team, and remote employees that support our call center and our digital customers. We employ about 300 people in Georgia, and our business in the state accounts for about $65 million in retail business alone. Before joining REI over 15 years ago, I worked for the YMCA, leading teen and summer camp programs. Before that, I worked at a small university leading guided outdoor experiences for students. So my entire adult career has been dedicated to outdoor recreation, nature connection, and in particular, finding opportunities to connect young people into this industry for their own development, their enjoyment, and potentially their career. It's been so rewarding to hear from you folks in the room today, from the academic and not-for-profit and government sectors, and gosh, what a passionate group of leaders. What I'd like to offer as an alternate perspective is the impact that this work can also have on the private sector. We've observed a trend towards increased outdoor recreation for years among adults, but certainly the COVID environment has accelerated that trend. And as a company that specializes in outdoor gear and experiences, that's presented a unique opportunity to reposition our business, expand our workforce, and really closely evaluate how we show up for our philanthropic partners. Engaging people in the outdoors at any age has significant benefit to their mental and physical health. Over the past 18 months, I've heard stories from our employees and our customers over and over again as they connect to a local park, to a bird watching group. They plan a long distance hike for the first time, that in this season of significant uncertainty, job loss, fear over their personal or family health, civil unrest, that they've really struggled to find peace, and a connection to the outdoors has offered that. But the connection to nature at a young age is undeniable. So certainly it's beneficial at all ages, but undeniable impact at a young age. I'll offer a personal and a professional example on these benefits before I close my remarks, and want to honor our time here today. I have a son. I have 2 kiddos, an 8-year-old daughter and a son named Isaiah. He turns 4 next week. My son attends a fully outdoor preschool, a forest preschool program, to the point that the senator and many of you have made in your remarks today. This is a choice that we made in part to mitigate his exposure risk and ease our minds that he could return to an educational environment with other children, and that he would be as safe as possible in the midst of the pandemic. As a result of this and our own personal commitments in our home, he's able to identify the birds in our backyard. His favorite bird is a goldfinch. He loves to help me in our garden, and he quickly reminds me which foods are healthy and which are not. Now, his favorite food is marshmallows, so I take that advice with a grain of salt. As part of his education at preschool, he starts his day with something called a sit spot. This is where he finds a spot to sit alone in the woods for 15 minutes and quietly observes the world around him. He comes home every day and he shares what he thought about. Sometimes it's about his dreams. Sometimes it's about what he wants to be for Halloween. Sometimes it's about an episode of Paw Patrol that he really liked. But sometimes it's about the way that I spoke to him that morning that upset him, or the thing that he did that morning that he wants to apologize for. And every day I'm reminded that we all could probably benefit from some quiet time under the trees to just sit with our uninterrupted thoughts. Professionally, I'll share that the candidates I encounter in the applicant pool at REI are very diverse in their lived experience. Some people love to travel, some have been Boy Scouts, some are retirees, some are high school students, some people like to ride bikes or hike the Appalachian Trail. Some people just like to walk their dogs. There's no specific level of expertise or experience that we look for. But what I commonly hear is that people came to our organization interested in a part-time job because they thought it would be fun. And it is fun, but that a viable career in the recreation economy may not have occurred to them. And many folks have spoken to this already. because despite the huge economy available in the outdoor recreation sector, we don't really talk about these jobs as though they are viable careers when people are young or beginning to consider kind of quote what they want to be when they grow up. And then they're surprised, often delighted, that it can be a viable career, that they can support themselves, their families, and feel a real sense of community connection by helping other people feel safe in the outdoors. That is just an optimal equation in the workforce. Passion, enjoyment, financial viability, and opportunities to connect with other people in meaningful ways. I certainly feel energized by the positive impact of that work. I can tell many of you in the room feel energized by that as well. Very excited to see where all of this goes. But those are the comments I have today, and happy to take questions. But I know we're short on time as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Next, we have Mr. Randy Duto, our sports strategy. Thank you, sir.
Hope that's all right. And before I get started, I am a graduate of Georgia State University, and I got a C in public speaking. So I hope the information that I share with you will hopefully be above average. So bear with me. Good morning, and thank you for allowing me this time to speak. My name is Randy Duto, and I'm Vice President of Community and Strategy for Community Strategy and Development for Sports Strategies. We're an economic development group that works with communities to help them recognize the value of their traditional and sports and outdoor recreation assets in contributing to the local economy. We accomplish this through strategic planning, community sports assessments, and event development. According to Sports Event Travel Association, the trade association for the sports event and tourism industry, sports tourism generated $45.1 billion economic impact in the United States in 2019. In the state of Georgia, outdoor recreation generates $1.8 billion annually in state and local taxes. Our statewide destination marketing organizations recognize this value as sports tourism and outdoor recreation activities pump big money into local communities. For example, Ironman 70.3 Augusta annually contributes $4.7 million to the economy of the Augusta River region. It should be known that even during economic downturns, it has been shown when the economy stalls, people may cancel vacations, but they will continue to travel for sports and outdoor activities. No less important is the value of these outdoor activities on our youth. While a few kids may develop into the next sports superstar, a significant majority benefit by learning sportsmanship and gaining fitness through the intrinsic value of being outdoors. These activities also play a significant role in confidence building, and they are important in teaching social skills, but more importantly, kids who learn and play in these environments perform better academically and have higher graduation rates. While we have this captive and impressionable audience, we're presented an opportunity to expand their horizons beyond the phone screen and even the traditional sports playing field by redirecting them towards our trails, waterways, and natural playgrounds. When we foster this exposure, we have an opportunity to raise active and educated kids who will be good stewards of our outdoor assets. This is important. These lessons are invaluable in grooming the leaders of tomorrow. I'm heartened that our state leaders have created the Georgia Outdoor Learning Study Committee, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to share my thoughts today. It is my hope that through the course of your study, you will recognize the educational and physical benefits provided to our children through outdoor learning. We have a tremendous opportunity before us. In developing new programs and expanding existing outdoor educational platforms, Georgia could become the standard bearer in this realm, and the children of Georgia will be the beneficiaries. So let us all work together to make this a reality.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Darrell Smith, founder, Minority Alliance of Uganda Network. Thank you, sir.
How are y'all this morning?
Fine, thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to be here and thank y'all for having me. So I am Darrell Smith, the founder of Minority Outdoor Alliance and co-founder, president, and CEO of the Minority Outdoor Alliance. Both established to bring in the unlikely to the outdoors. In addition to that, I'm the recent recipient of the 2021 Orvis Breaking Barriers Award. I'm a teacher of 6 years. My early years were at a Title I school, 2 Title I schools in Fulton County schools, and now I currently teach at the Westminster School. I'm also an upland hunting guide and a bird dog trainer. So I say this to say a lot of my time is spent outside. But more importantly, I am what I would consider an exemplary product of what happens when you keep children outside. I very vividly remember spending my summers, out in the woods on lakes and all kinds of stuff in Alabama, but also most importantly with my grandfather, who was a postal inspector for the post office here. His entire career taught me firearm safety in the form of shooting BB guns at squirrels way back in the day. And that led me to founding the brand, the Gun Dog Notebook, and the nonprofit Minority Outdoor Alliance. So I say that to say, I hope that I can be an example of what we can do with youth when we not only keep them outdoors, but also educate them about the outdoors. And I want to address just a few talking points that would hopefully continue to push this the progress. So outdoor learning, number one, makes sense now and after COVID. It made sense beforehand, but it definitely makes sense now. It improves educational outcomes by improving children's academic performance, their focus, their behavior, and love of learning. In addition to that, that segues into Georgia's outdoor recreation economy that annually generates 143,000 jobs, creating $6,300,000 in wages and salaries and $1.8 billion in state and local tax revenue. In addition to that, you can just go ahead and create your own job like I did and continue to become representatives in the outdoors. We can't get most minorities outside because we frankly haven't addressed the reasons for going. The reasons that African Americans frequent the outdoors is completely different than Asian Americans and Hispanic Americans. We're not addressing their needs. We're not even tapping into a significant part of the population of Asian Americans that want education that can come from outside. And it's naturally a part of all of our cultures. Being outside is 1000% American. In addition to that point, we can create opportunities for outdoor activity and recreation that expose more minorities to academic opportunities, such as shooting clay scholarships and water conservation studies. I'm a graduate of Albany State University. My wife is a graduate of University of Georgia, got her law degree from this school here at Georgia State. And the disparity was that I never knew that there was money and scholarships for outdoor activities from public institutions in Georgia. But yet my wife, as an African-American woman, she went to school every day knowing about this. So we can create pipelines for education and not only get kids in the outdoors, but pay for them to be in the outdoors, pay for an academic education, and then move them on up the ladder and continue to create stakeholders in the outdoors. You don't participate in conservation if you don't know what you're conserving. Everybody needs conservation. I need it because I like hunting quail. And I got 6 dogs at the house that like to run around. But I also want to protect our waterways. I grew up in the city of Atlanta, in Greenbrier, and in Riverdale. And there wasn't a day in my life as a child that I saw clean creeks. Right there at Sandtown Park, them creeks are dirty. Why would you want a kid to play with that? But then I teach at Westminster, Nancy Creek, there are opportunities to clean that every other week. So why are we not addressing the disparities between minorities and the outdoors? They don't want to get outdoors because it's dirty. Okay, so then my second point, I don't want to run too much time. My second point is, again, kids spend 90% of their time indoors, and much of that is in front of a screen. The screen time has gone up, in kids, especially during COVID-19. Well, we know getting outside and getting just straight up vitamin D, that's one of the preventatives, in addition to getting vaccinated, sure. But that's one of the preventatives. We can not only cut down that screen time, but we can help kids not get this new variant by just keeping them outside, teaching them outside. And I can tell you, teaching in Title I school, I taught at Bear Creek Middle School in Fairburn. Those kids wanted to be outside. They were tuned in when they were outside. My last point is that outdoor learning also supports the health and well-being of educators. We know that educators who take students outdoors to learn are less likely to burn out. I taught in a rough school, couple of rough schools, matter of fact. And I didn't burn out from teaching, and I didn't run out of that door every other day, was because I was able to go home, get outside, run my dogs, teach these dogs how to point. I had something else that kept me attached and grounded. And so many other teachers just don't know to do that. Kids, I asked them, well, what did you do during the summertime? Well, I didn't do anything. I sat at home. Well, we know that's a pipeline of trouble. Idle hands. We know that's a pipeline of trouble, but we've got public lands literally 45 minutes outside of the city that you can go. It doesn't cost you anything. So we can create educational programs and curricula that not only lead children from middle school to high school, get them a scholarship into, colleges and universities, get them fully vested into the outdoors and conserving the outdoors. And then we create we tap into another community of stakeholders that can continue generating money for the outdoors. And we keep our kids safe at the same time. I'm a father of two, a son and a daughter. And that is the biggest struggle at this point in time, is figuring out how I'm going to send my 2-year-old and my 1-year-old to school. I wouldn't be thinking about this if we had them outside. So I know we don't have a lot of time for questions, but I did want to speak on behalf of local experience and a little bit of research to continue encouraging us to develop programs to get outside.
Thank you, appreciate it.
You for, if I may, Mr. Chairman, for your award and your presentation and your outlook on outdoors. One of the things that I think we all can appreciate and realize really is that the population demographically, they're moving to the cities. I think the census shows that people are moving to the city, and it becomes even more important to preserve those outdoor spaces and the things that you love to do that is such a benefit to your life and all of our lives, really. And I'm for that. I'm gung-ho for it. I just want to know if you're going to win that game when Fort Valley come to whip you down at the Classic in Columbus, Georgia, coming up. I just want to know.
You didn't go to Fort Valley, did you?
Oh, no, I did. Calvin Smyra did. So I got to stand up for him right now. So,
well, if you went to Fort Valley, you would know Albany State going to take that game anyway. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have Ashley Rouse, Director of Project Learning Garden and Project Giving Gardens of Captain Planet Foundation. Thank you.
I was going to say good morning, but I guess it's more like good afternoon at this point. I too am not a great public speaker, but so I'm going to read from what I wrote and hope you guys understand. My name's Ashley Rouse, and I'm a resident of Senate District 42, and I'm the Director of Project Learning Gardens and Project Giving Gardens for the Captain Planet Foundation. Our organization believes in working collaboratively with a lot of the folks in the room to empower and engage young people to be problem solvers of the planet. We do that by providing small grants and operating programs. The two programs that I oversee involve turning outdoor green spaces of schools into learning laboratories where students can understand how to apply real-world solutions and develop affinity for how natural systems work. Imagine this scenario, if you will. It's a spring morning, and either of these teachers that are in the room are taking their students outside and to escape their classrooms to provide the students with an outdoor experience. Each student has a field journal, a clipboard with paper and recording observations and making drawings, or writing down questions that arise from firsthand investigation. At one station, the teacher leaves plastic storage bags for the students to collect soil, samples, leaves, seeds, and other intriguing objects. At another station, you might see kids picking up magnifying glasses to examine tiny little plants in the sidewalk. And in that instance, you might see a student who spies an army of ants climbing up a tree, and he writes down, "Why are those ants marching up the tree?" And at the third station, you might see students in a garden collecting various caterpillars off of cabbage or collard plants and placing them in jars for further study. Upon returning to the classroom, the teacher reviews the diversity of the observations and provides feedback, but that opens up a discussion between the students about what they saw collectively making their observations outside. And while recalling the depths of the students' engagement and personal discovery, we may recall Rachel Carson's caveat about the importance of cultivating sensory experiences in the young. If facts are the seeds that later produce knowledge and wisdom, then the emotions and the impressions of the senses are fertile soil in which the seeds must grow. The years of childhood are the time to prepare that soil. So doing scientific inquiry in real world context involves the use of specific strategies that focus on gathering data, keeping good records, and making careful observations that may take time during conventional learning in classrooms can be more anticipatory and retroactive for kids. Project Learning Gardens not only provide schools with outdoor living learning laboratories, it creates connections to kids from where their food comes from. With our over 575 school gardens, we have a little over 330 here in the Atlanta metro area. The kids that are more likely to try fruits and vegetables from seeds that they plant, nurture until they're ready to harvest. School gardens provide the instructional space for students to be involved in the production of their food, to see the life cycle of a plant, to understand what nutrients it and the soil needs for plants to grow by building the relationship to the space and earth. Students will naturally become stewards. And when these students grow up, they become parents that then pass down the health and nutritional aspects to their children. So essentially, we're growing a community of children that are aware of the benefits of gardening, eating fresh and local foods, and that ripples into homes just from that exposure to school gardens. For the past year and a half during the pandemic, we've heard from a lot of our PLG educators about the importance of school garden space and how it's provided outdoor learning. The gardens provide educators with safe space to socially distance their students, continue teaching hands-on engaging lessons that involve real-world problem solving. PLG, Project Learning Gardens, provides 5 key elements for garden-based education: beds, soil, summer garden maintenance strategies, a mobile kitchen cart, garden exploration kit, and we also provide teacher training and curriculum. And we use that as a feedback loop to stay informed on what's currently trending for teachers in the classroom and outdoor garden space. Outdoor learning and exposure to nature have immediate and long-lasting effects on students and adults. And tying back to what one of my colleagues in the room said earlier, the more high-tech our lives become, the more disconnected from the natural world we are, and the more nature we need. We have the human right to have a meaningful connection to nature, and we have a responsibility that comes with that right. I really appreciate you all for having me today. And the one last thing I would like to say is, although our programming is funded specifically for the Metro Atlanta area, I do believe that state funding for specifically outdoor learning programs could be expanded to rural areas if you all are able to see that through. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Now I guess we need to start hearing from a teacher, Shashawn Spolsky, the teacher at Mableton Elementary School, which is a Cobb County Public School Systems, also the founder and owner of EduSize, I guess.
EduSize.
Thank you.
As I stand here before you, I'm looking at my heart rate and it's going up because the heart rate's the #1 indicator of our social emotional wellness. Today, I'm going to tell you an amazing story about what I experience every day in my life as an educator. My speech for you today I prepared is called "The Time Is Now." Our garden was established for one simple reason: children's health. We saw a need of the obesity pandemic at our school at Mableton Elementary. Providing children a time outside and teaching them healthy living habits at an early age is critically important. We teach our kids not only how to farm, but we teach them culinary arts. We provide them real life skills every day. I just cooked salads this week, nachos. You would not believe collard green quesadillas. The things we come up with is nothing short of amazing. At Mableton Elementary School, Dr. Kane, our principal and leader, provides the ultimate learning experience for our children every day. Just this past Sunday, I read what I knew was inevitable. A new study came out from the pandemic and childhood obesity. Childhood obesity is my passion. The study found that 5 through 11-year-old children went from 36.2% to 45.7% being obese or overweight in 1 year. Let that sink in. 9.5%. 1 in every 2 children are going to get debilitating diseases if we don't make a stand right now. In the 1970s, when many of you growing up, it was 1 in 20 children. They played outside then. This is frankly horrifying, this data. Schools need to do more now more than ever. Get students outside, let them play, let them move. The time is now. Now it's time to paint the scene of what I see daily in the amazing life of being a teacher. This past Friday, I had Miss Vincent and Miss Lerner's amazing kindergarten. When it's funny, you reflect on kindergarten. It really means in German, children garden. As the students enter my room each day, they put on an interactive health IHT spirit heart rate monitor. On average, my students burn from 2,500 to 4,500 calories per 45-minute session. As research shows, students who are physically fit achieve better in school, have less health problems, get better grades, are better able to handle socially and emotionally as well because they have so many coping skills. We always move to learn. That day, as we jogged down to the garden from my classroom, I saw 2 classes, Miss Watson, Miss GX, 3rd grade class out at recess. I couldn't help but laugh. I had 2 wheelbarrows and they were full of mud and they're stirring sticks. And I was just like, this is the moments that happen every day that I see. It's not in a lesson plan. It's there because it happens naturally. It happens naturally. So in that moment, I said, all right, I'm going to make these 3rd grade, they're going to be my teachers right now because I know them. They're amazing. I've known them the last 3 years. So I looked at them. I said, who's ready to be a teacher today? They all raised their hand. They said, yes, right here. Me, me, me. I said, this is the kindergartners class. This is their first time they've ever been to the garden. Can you teach them a lesson? They're learning, I said, they're learning about the physical properties of matter. But wait, you're learning about the physical properties of soil, minerals, and rocks. Could you teach them a lesson? Go find a partner. They walked over, they found a partner, and they looked at their new kindergarten friend, and they introduced themselves. And as I watched, the magic began. Students started gently placing the kindergartner's fingers right in the soil, and they started asking probing questions. They said, how does it feel? What does it look like? Why is it shiny? They all of a sudden were learning that's a breakdown of Earth's surface. The kindergartners were learning right there. The magic was in the air. As I tell the story, I have goosebumps all throughout my body because every day I see magic. The children are the guide. The children are the teachers. I am their guide. I just show them the way. As the students went to outdoor stations, you could find students learning how to use simple machines, students filming and acting as about the properties of bubble, and fluttering throughout the garden. Students are digging in soil. They're finding caterpillars. Fall armyworms have been the real big critter this week. They're looking in grass, finding organisms they've never seen before. And the shriek they make when they find a worm is nothing short of amazing every day. And I love it. They could dig. I had one student yesterday that was just covered in dirt. I'm like, so the teacher, I'm like, oh, they had fun. We learned a lot about soil today. But I always have a station dedicated to math called Edgesize, which is my business that I founded and created. Thanks. And I'm so thankful for Cobb County Schools for believing in me. You're probably asking yourself, well, what in the world is Edgesize? The mission of Edgesize is to inspire and motivate a new generation of learners to achieve academically, socially, physically, and emotionally. Edgesize is the first kind of curriculum in its world. This combines heart rate monitor technology, STEM, social emotional learning, physical movement, and it's really focused on the whole child. Because when I was a kid, I didn't have good experiences. My favorite quote my mother told me was, teachers never thought you were special, Sean. I always knew that you were. They didn't. They didn't. They told me how many things I failed at. I've never told a student ever that you'd fail. When they say I can't, I say you can, because I believe in every student. Being the owner of this amazing program, I'm already in 3 districts in Georgia. I'm generating interest in states. Just found one from Ohio last week, Wisconsin, Texas. It's amazing. It's like living your dream. But that's what we're supposed to do. We're living our dreams here. The time is now, and my program will be used in any learning space. I stand before you, and right now is the time. We have to make a stand once and for all on this child obesity epidemic that's been plaguing our children for 35 plus years. Why do we continue to stand here and not do anything? I'm going to be the change and be part of the solution here in Georgia and in the nation. Right now, researchers believe that our children may not outlive their parents. That is sickening. That makes me get tears in my own eyes of my own children that were 2 and 4 years old. Right now is the time in Georgia where we can lead the nation, not only through a foundation of learning outdoors, but moving and learning everywhere. We have to help our students get healthier. The healthier they are, the better people they're going to be, the better their minds will be, and their life will be more amazing. Let's not just explore committees. Let's be the change. Let's make commitments right now that we must. We have to come together. If there is ever a time, it's now. The time is now to lead our nation on a new way to learn, grow, and achieve academically, socially, physically, and emotionally. Edgesize combined with IHT, with outdoor learning is such an answer that we need now more than ever. All those teachers out there, I wrote this message for you. What you've done in this pandemic is nothing short of amazing. I am so amazed to work with all the amazing and beautiful teachers I know at Mableton Elementary and in Cobb County Schools. Last year, when my program was launched, they said kids couldn't work together. Our district proved them wrong. They could play, they could learn, they could achieve. Here it is, the power of you and the power of we. The power of you is what makes anything possible to achieve. The power of you is incredible. Your strength to overcome so many obstacles is undeniable. You've inspired, stayed positive, persevered, even when Zoom crashed again. You found the energy you needed deep from within to power through and tell your students, you got this. You learned more this year than you ever thought possible. Who would have thought you had to wear a mask? Wait, did you wear 1, 2, or did you go with the triple threat? What you have done this year is incredible. It's inspiring. You have found a way to lift our community. You have persevered through digital teaching to teaching in a shared synchronous environment. You juggled teaching on a screen while juggling bleach wipes and hand sanitizer. You find a way to teach your students no matter what is going on. You smile and it still warms the heart of so many. You are passionate, loving, and caring. You mean so much to so many. You are loved. You are you. But it's the power of we that truly shows what we can accomplish. Together, we are strong. Together, we inspire so many lives. We believe in one another. We share with one another. We wish we could hug one another. Together, we are what makes schools work. Together, we can conquer any obstacle. Together, we can be the difference. We find solutions. We innovate. We motivate. We listen. We love. We teach, we change lives. We are we, the power of you and the power of we. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your passion. Good job. Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
I kind of need a drink of water.
Thank you. Thank you. Last but
One thing that I've learned, the greatest gift my parents ever gave me was not to put me on Adderall. I've struggled with ADHD my whole life. It took me 37 years while I was at Mercer University for one teacher to tell me I was ever good at anything. It took me 37 years because every kid has a special number. And that's a great quote from Marley Tears, one of my amazing mentors. And I want to thank Dr. Kane, Dr. Creel, so many amazing people. Thank you so much.
thank you again. Last but not least, we have a Ms. Karen Wood. The Director of Environmental Education Alliance. Let her speak for a minute. The last, it's not on the list. She's going to be like Karen Wood. She's the Executive Director of the Environmental Education Alliance. It's not on that list. She requested this morning, so we let it up. Information, yes. Yeah. It's Executive Director for Environmental Education,
Thank you, Senator Rahman, and everybody for your patience. I know we're running a little late today, so I'll be brief. Today, we've heard evidence about the value of outdoor learning for children from the perspectives of health and physical fitness, academic gains, critical thinking, and self-efficacy, or having the confidence to make a difference in the world. And the testimony's been presented by a variety of folks. Education folks and outdoor learning providers and allies, including the passion of an elementary school teacher, a nature center that engages kids in environmental restoration work, a funder who helps teachers get started with garden-based learning, and nonprofits that expose children of color to environmental careers. But it may surprise you to know how many voices were not here today and how many Georgia outdoor learning models you haven't heard about yet, just because of the time limitations of the hearing today. There are residential 4-H centers, nature centers from Jekyll Island to the Blue Ridge and other places across the state that offer week-long immersive outdoor learning experiences for students all over. The Chattahoochee Riverkeeper and Alachi Nature Science Center have teamed up to take students out on floating classrooms and show them how to collect water samples and learn what that means for the future of our state, about our water quality. Fernbank Museum, the UGA Extension Service, and monarchs across Georgia engage kids in citizen science projects like Darrell was mentioning earlier, ones where students collect real-world data that is used for authentic research projects where they have to crowdsource the data collection. The Georgia Department of Natural Resources provides outdoor learning at every single state park and runs an amazing unparalleled Adopt a Stream program and Rivers Alive program throughout our state, which gives kids and communities a chance to monitor water quality on creeks at cross school campuses and elsewhere in the state. Public schools like Amana Academy get every kid out for expeditionary learning every day. And other STEM certified schools and schools that aspire to be STEM certified engage their kids in project-based learning, which is a way of taking kids outside to solve authentic real-world problems using what they've learned and applying the concepts that they've learned in school by making them into scientists themselves who are using science and engineering practices in their everyday learning experiences. Schools like Paideia and High Meadows have been teaching outside every single day since the pandemic began, rain or shine, using borrowed party tents and 6-foot-long tables, a very inexpensive investment. They've gotten kids outside to study every single subject every day. All across the state, students are learning Georgia's homegrown standards, which are phenomenon-based, which is a way, it's a way that Georgia has decided to engage students as a little bit different from inquiry related, that has to do with exploring before explaining, having a phenomenon that students start out and they learn how to investigate it and sort their way through to an explanation of it. And that is happening outdoors at schools all across the state. So lucky students everywhere in rural and in urban areas of Georgia are getting to experience outdoor learning every day because their teachers have found out about the benefits of this approach. And they've had the professional learning to prepare them to be able to do this with their students, something that doesn't happen in the average college pre-service training program for teachers, where most students in education schools in Georgia receive only one science education course during their entire careers, college preparation careers. So those teachers who have had the success and the experience and the preparation, their students are lucky and they get to go outside. Outdoor learning is happening every day in Georgia, but not for every child. And that's our challenge. We need to bring outdoor learning to all the kids in all the parts of Georgia and advance Georgia as a leader in this field of outdoor learning. And we're here, senators, to help you with that challenge. And we appreciate your interest in this and your commitment to make a difference in the lives of these kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle. Yes, yes. Thank you, appreciate it. Been thanks to all of you for this great presentation. And we're going to visit some of the site. We're going to schedule and let you know, and we're going to visit some of your site and some of the facilities, probably not on this particular list, but we have a list that we're going to go through among our colleagues and then see what we can do next. And hopefully, I know we're a few minutes over. We started late, and this will probably formally conclude today's session. And you all can stick around, and I'll be glad to answer any questions or anything we have to move forward. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We can. Is Miss Karen? Your comment, yeah, if you can provide it, we can, we can pass it along. That's fine. That will work. That will work because you have some good information about it. Yeah. Thank you again. Appreciate it. Thank you.